Good evening. This is the Rutland Town Planning Commission, and it's February 19th of 2026. Let's start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, again, good evening. Planning Commission, we've got 6 people here, so everyone votes as it is right now. And we've got some people in the audience. Are you here for the discussion about the pocket park?
I'm just here to observe.
Okay, great. Well, welcome again, third time, I guess. Anyone here just to generally comment before we get into the main part of our agenda? Let's approve the agenda then. There's a second? Second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda as is, say aye, please. Aye. Opposed? Okay. So now we'll move down to new business, and the first item there is our pocket park, our planned pocket park here in Center Rutland. And we invited the Indigenous tribes of Vermont. We also invited the federally recognized tribes. They were not able to make it tonight. The Stockbridge Muncie are on the road for some meetings, but I did talk to them. I talked to Jeff Bendringer. He's the THPO of that group. So he had a few comments. Yeah.
All right.
Well, why don't you sit here?
I'll keep the seat warm until Dana shows up.
Welcome to the show.
About that.
So if you folks in the audience and on Zoom would like to introduce yourselves to us, I think that'd be a great way to start. Looking at you, Chief Stevens, first.
Yeah, Quay. Hello, Nita Ba. That's greeting friends. And I am Don Stevens. I'm chief of the Nulhegan Band of the Coosac Abenaki Nation, one of the largest Abenaki tribes in the United States. And we're primarily more Northeast Kingdom, but we have citizens all the way down to Massachusetts and over to Maine and New Hampshire. So I kind of do a regional. We have people all over the place. So I've kind of worked with a lot of government officials, whether it be federal, state, or local organizations to help with education on culture and meeting the needs of our citizens. So I'll leave it there, and I'll be here for any kind of questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Who else is on Zoom? If we had someone else.
She left. Well,
Okay.
but he's the only one left online.
Okay. And here in the room we have.
Josh Lemieux, a resident of Janice Ave, been a town resident for about 12 years. Just here to listen.
Okay.
And observe.
Resident of where? I'm sorry.
I live on Janice Ave.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for joining us.
I have a neighbor here.
Oh.
Careful.
Well, what we have with the pocket park is it is right next to a Green Mountain Power hydro plant, and it's about 2 acres that have been that were part of GMP, but were conveyed recently to the town for the purposes of a pocket park. And we're going to be building it out in several different phases. The first one being a trail out to an overlook, which would overlook the Otter Creek and the falls there, and have, a picnic area, some walking area, and would include some signage. And that's what we wanted to talk to the tribes about, what we wanted to include in those signs. We have a kiosk that will be going up and potentially some additional signs. And those signs will all have to cover the varied and long history of that pocket park. Starting with Indigenous use and going to some of the first settlers in the Rutland area, going to the mill phase, and then the more industrial use of the falls, with the marble companies and the Green Mountain Power. So, it's so rich in history. We'd like to cover as much as we can of that, and provide, use links that will, let people find out even more information, or websites. Chief Stevens, has that area, was that given a name by the Abenaki?
Well, we'd have to look specifically. I mean, obviously, I don't know every spot and what people would call it. We're place-based, so we would look at that place and name it for what it was used for. For instance, like Winooski, that's where the wild onions grew, right? Or something like that. Or, Nulhegan, where I'm from, it's where the wooden traps were placed, right? So we'd have to look at that area. I do know that I've been very involved with working with the state, who have adopted in legislation to add our language to state park signs and other places. I work a lot with the city of Montpelier, who just gave us land access, and working with us on that front. But we do have a linguist. His name is Jesse Bruchak, who is the director of Abenaki language at Middlebury College, and we just did a 13,000 word dictionary, English to Abenaki dictionary. So we are working to try to promote our language, which should be easy to put on a sign. And most waterways, and especially Otter Creek, Lemon Fair, was huge occupations. Anything 200 feet from the river. Obviously, if you're growing crops near a river, you would need fish to fertilize. You need water to irrigate, and that was your way in and out. That was your highway. That's how you got up and visited people, because you traveled up and down the rivers. So, I mean, all waterways throughout, thousands of years, there's got to be some occupation somewhere in that area. I don't know how much of that was disturbed by the power plant, but in that area, there would have been activity. So it is our understanding that Rutland was a mixture between the Mohegan and the Abenaki people. It was a confluence of a lot of different areas where we all met and gathered and worked together. So I would hope that, if the Stockbridge are involved, that both of us would be included somehow on that, if that's their desire as well, but not be excluded, right? So we work within the state of Vermont and are recognized in the state of Vermont. So we wouldn't want to be excluded in our own homeland. So I'd be okay with having, multiple voices on it. That's not a problem. So the exact name, I can't tell you. I mean, we'd have to go and look and see historically. Sometimes within the charters of the town, sometimes there's specific locations that are listed, because that's the first contact between Europeans and our people, or even the Mohegan. I don't know what's listed there from a historical. I mean, we do have a tribal historic preservation officer we'd have to check in with too. The Elnu tribe, Rich Holshoe's not here, but he's the tribal historic preservation officer for Elnu, who's down in the Brattleboro area. And we've worked a lot with Green Mountain National Forest. So there's a lot of activity in your area. I can tell you that for sure.
Going forward, should we be in constant contact with all four of the Abenaki tribes to talk this through?
Well, I thought some of them were going to be here today. I know Rich Holshoe, I think, had responded to, are you Barbara? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, yes.
I think he had responded to you saying that he would be here. I don't know what happened, or so I think they want to be involved. I would say reach out to the four tribes, and then whoever decides to consult with you, do, and at least reach out, and those who don't, then I would just defer to the people who are working with you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I'm just here to help in any way. I know, like I said, there's activity, and my main concern is there area for wildlife? If you're displacing things, is there educational signs? How are you doing? How are you accessing it from the public? And if you do find things like finding pottery or other types of items, that you would kind of let us know so we could document it and see how to preserve what we can. That's our main goal.
And that's part of Green Mountain Power's obligation for its license too.
Right, under section 106, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. So I've also heard that the Mohawks were in the area, the St. Regis.
Well,
Do you suggest that we reach out to them as well?
I mean, personally, you can reach out to whoever you want, but I don't really feel that that's necessary. You have to understand the history of, we probably don't have time to go into it, but this side of the lake was New France. So we allied with the French, and part of that allied was Seven Nations of Canada, which included Iroquois tribes that were on the French side. Then there was also, there are people on the British side, that were the Iroquois Confederacy, who are now in New York. So did they come over and try to hunt here? Yes. But did they occupy it? That's to be determined. We would say no, because this was our territory and our homeland. It'd be both Mohegan and ourselves. Did they come and trade and visit? Of course. We were allied, and we were also enemies. So I wouldn't say personally that they occupied this, but that's Rich might have another understanding of it. He's closer to your area. I see that he just joined us. So I think the Mohegan would have more say than any Iroquois tribe.
Yeah, Rich, we're essentially just getting going here and starting to talk about our plans for the pocket park. It's very small. The parcels that comprise that site are less than 2 acres, but we're looking at an area even smaller than that, especially for the first phase of this park, which would go to the overlook over the center Rutland Falls and the Otter Creek River. There'd be some passive recreation there. And, and so we'll also include some signage. And that's what we are especially interested in talking to you folks about. What do we put on those signs?
And I'll quickly bring up to speed, Rich, of what I told them is that Otter Creek is a heavily known area for native, populations, and we feel El New Nulhegan, not speaking for you, but Rutland is kind of a mixture. It was a mixture between Mohegan and Abenaki, and it was kind of confluence of that area because we all shared, area in that space. My biggest thing was language and having signs, and they asked if there was a name known to that site. And I'm saying, I'm not sure exactly without looking at historical records, or we usually looked at things as place and whatever that place might be, like Winooski, which would be wild onions or something like that. So I don't know if you're aware of that location having any historical names, but I'll defer to you on that.
Sui, for sure. Thank you. Kwayamziwi, greetings everyone. Apologize Analdamawi for being late. I was out for dinner with my daughter, and I was getting back as fast as I could. So forgive me, please. Thank you for the invitation. Good to see you. Hello, Chief Don. Um, so, yeah, I guess Don has shared some background already. Um, with reference to language for signage, I would be happy to help contribute. I could, whatever we decide to do, I could put that in writing and file that with you shortly. In terms of place name, a toponym for the falls there, where the park is situated. I would have to check on documentation. There may or may not be a known name for that. It's also possible to translate a name into a Benaki. That's pretty straightforward to be able to do that. Not a lot of names are no longer kept in memory because of the process of colonization and renaming. Not everything was preserved, but some were, and I can look into that. For example, looking at the Otter Creek as a continuous waterway all the way from Beatown Bulk, Lake Champlain, up to its headwaters at the divide where Otter Creek flows north and Battenkill flows south, which is just south of Mount Tabor in the western Vermont Valley. That's your water dividing line. Otter Creek flows north from there, and that was a heavily traveled waterway, trails following that on foot and by boat where it was navigable for everyone living in that area. And that was the primary path for folks living east of the Green Mountains, who would travel west to visit relatives and trade and other things. For example, I live in what is traditionally known as Wantastaguk, which is Brattleboro today. And that is the place where the West River comes into the Connecticut. And the West River was a primary travel route west toward Otter Creek. People would pass over the mountains at a number of different locations, the main one being at Mount Holly, just to your southeast. Of course, the railroad comes through there. It's the lowest point on the landscape. But there was a couple of other passes that would follow tributaries of the West River to the top of the mountains, the height of land, and then over the other side down to Otter Creek. Unagiki Sibu, we do know the name of the creek. That's not a problem. We can definitely use that. And that literally translates as Otter Creek. That's a legacy name. Unagik is the otter, and Sibu is a creek. We have words for falls. I don't know if we have a name for that particular one, but again, we can look into that. But there was a lot of traffic moving down through that corridor. So we could very readily provide language. Relative to who was using that corridor, as Don was touching upon, there would have been Abenaki people in the area and traveling over from the east. Mohican to the south, coming straight up the Vermont Valley. Shared territory in that area where the watersheds divide. People of the water, and we're taking our homeland cues and our kinship relations in terms of watersheds. So closely related with the Mohican in that corner, the Mohican, Mahikaniok, as they call themselves. But really nobody else, unless they were visiting or they were hostile. As Don pointed out, Kanien'kehá:ka, the Mohawk, at the eastern side of the 5 or 6 nations, depending on where you're counting, may have been coming into the area, but usually for their own reasons. So I don't think a lot of people would argue with that. You will find references in some older history books that will mention frequently of Iroquoian or Mohawk specifically being in the western side of the state. A lot of that is not true. it's erroneous. People did not know the stories. We do understand that a lot better now. And as Don pointed out, those relationships with folks to the west would change. They could be in a position of enmity, or they could be trading partners. All depends on what was going on, and the process of colonization deeply affected that, with people choosing sides.
Yeah. And the state did declare that the Iroquois, when they did try to say that Vermont was part of their territory, they were flatly rejected, and were told this was not part of their homeland. But the Mohegan did have homeland here, and the state of Vermont does recognize that. So I'm just saying, so that's why we're saying that we don't feel that the Mohawk, other than traveling through or maybe visiting or warring parties or trying to take furs, they didn't really occupy this side of the lake.
Mm-hmm.
What was your relationship with the Mohicans?
Are you asking me? I think we had to cohabitate. So I feel that we were fairly allied with each other. I mean, even on the other side of the lake, when they call the Adirondacks means bark eater in English. Like the Mohawks used to call us Adirondack or bark eaters. That pertained to Mohegan or us when we were over in the Adirondacks, which during the French and Indian Wars, we got pushed over on this side of the lake. Because most people don't realize the Iroquois weren't all the way to the lake. It was Abenaki, Mohegan, and then we were pushed out because we couldn't reinforce our people enough. And that's where you hear that last of the Mohegan and all this other crap, all this other stuff, because we got moved out. So I'm just saying that we got along, and like any tribal families, you have friends, you have enemies, you kind of go back and forth. It just depends on who wronged you or what happened. I mean, think of it as Democrats and Republicans and independents. They don't always get along, but they're all Americans, right? So we're Indian. We all had to get along because we all had to not use up all the resources, so we had to work together. But we had differences of opinions, and we weren't always friends. But most of that was based on individual family bands and how they interacted with their neighbors. Because we were family bands, we weren't big tribes, we were family bands. So those families would work with the Europeans or indigenous people that were there at the time. And you were either friend or foe or somewhere in between. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Rich, but I think that pretty much where it was, right?
Yeah, that's a good overview. One additional thing I would add is that I would say that relationships, in both in terms of kinship and culturally speaking, were much closer with Mohican than Iroquoian speaking peoples, and that's primarily a factor of language being spoken. The Iroquoian peoples, including the Mohawk, who are closest to the west, and the others further, are speaking an Iroquoian language. Others speak an Iroquoian language as well. Cherokee is an Iroquoian language, for example. But the Mohican and the Abenaki and everyone who lives in the Northeast is speaking an Algonquian language. It's a different language family. They're mutually intelligible. You're close neighbors, you can understand what they're saying. So the Mohican dialect is pretty close to the Western Abenaki dialect, and the cultures are very, very similar. So they are seen as friends and relatives to a much closer degree. And thus friendly. Typically, under colonization, people would pick different sides depending on where they were located and to whose benefit it was. The Mohican tended to ally with the Americans in the Revolution. In particular, they allied with the Americans, and the Abenaki tended to ally with the British, who had taken over New France to the north, but the Abenaki were also split.
Yeah.
Depending on what worked for them as a matter of survival. But Mohican definitely be in a closer relationship.
I'll make one clarification to that. When we fought against the British, the American, like my family and our tribe, we were called Whigs. We were patriots and we fought on the side of the American Revolution. People in Canada, the Canadian Abenaki, were in British territory because Britain, once France left, Britain took over Canada, obviously. And then when the British and the British and the Americans fought each other, then the people in Canada allied with the British because they were in British territory, and we allied with the Americans. So that's why we say the Abenaki had a split, like a split. If you were in Canada, you usually allied with the British. If you were in the United States, you allied with the Revolution, unless there were some independent pockets of loyalists that you worked with closely because you guys were neighbors, and then you kind of supported. But like I said, it's a long history that we could get way into and go down a rabbit hole. But it's just it's fluid, right? I mean, because war was not a popular thing, because if somebody killed the husband, who took care of the family, right? So we always tried to negotiate in good faith, but we weren't afraid of defending our watershed either, because that was our grocery store. We wanted to make sure that all the resources didn't get used up. So that's why I keep saying that within Rutland area, especially, being a confluence of these different watersheds, there was a lot of trade. Like you'll hear Iroquois pottery. Well, that's where you might get confused. But also the Seven Nations Canada were Iroquois, and we all traded. We all learned with each other. We even have church in our burials that come from Labrador, which was 2,000 miles away. So our point was we learned, we shared, and we all worked together as best we could to survive. And we still do that today. Like I've worked with the Stockbridge, Muncie, on green corn ceremonies, giving them back those ceremonies because they didn't have them anymore. We've also disagreed with them. When they put up signs along Fort Chasm saying, look, you didn't come that far north. Like you were as far as Rutland. I mean, there's history books that say, that Abenaki were in this area too, and so was it the Mohicans. So we have our disagreements, but we still try to we still work with each other as best we can.
In addition to signage, are you interested in following us or monitoring how we develop this pocket park? Apparently it's so close to the Otter Creek, there might have been a terraced kind of system there for living arrangements. So we don't expect a lot of land disturbance. We do need to take a lot of invasives, trees and plants out, and replant those. But how much involvement do you want in that kind of work in the park?
I can speak for myself first, if you don't mind, Rich. For me, I'm more north. Like I will be here as much or as little as needed because our time constraints are pretty heavy. If you can imagine, we're usually consulting all over Vermont, New Hampshire, and all over the place. Like for me, I care about us being represented. I care about people understanding that villages and or sometimes burial grounds were within 200 feet of a waterway. So there's likelihood there could be pottery shards, there could be things. If those things aren't being dug up, then it doesn't bother me for Section 106 or archaeology. If things are dug up and found, then we want to be alerted so we can document and see what it is, and so we can be alerted. And Rich, being a tribal historic preservation officer, he definitely would want to be alerted to something like that. But I care about more the education, the signs. I don't care what kind of pavement you put in. I don't really care, I'd like to see what the sign looks like, and I'd like to see what you're saying about our people or how you're representing us. But I don't need to know every nuance of things. If you're putting up something so wildlife can thrive, because Rich will tell you, we look at everything that uses that space, not just human need. We look at all need. So if you were putting up a pole for osprey, or the dam was putting up something so that way the osprey has a place to nest. If you were putting in, instead of ornamental trees, you put in something where the animals can eat off from, whether it be elderberries or some sort of nut tree or something that is useful to not only humans but also animals. These are the kind of things, or making the habitat better for fish, or if you're going to disturb it, for putting canoes in, or making it easier for people to access, then make sure that you're not, if you're disturbing habitat, then you're making sure that there's viable, areas so fish can continue to spawn or move up and down the waterway. So these are the kind of things that I care about. Education, how do we look at everything that uses that space, and preserving culture if you find it. And that's my role, or that's me. I'm not going to speak for Rich. Like I said, they're closer to you, and he might have more involvement than I might. Rich?
Relative to staying on top of actual site work, I'm not clear. Forgive me if this has been mentioned already. Has there been any archaeological survey work done on the property?
There has been for, GMP has done some, for
Yeah.
its licensing and relicensing. And, it was pretty much, so they just went through the relicensing process, and it was pretty much left that if anything was found, with the development of the pocket park, that we would be in touch with the tribes and the Vermont Division of Historic Preservation,
Okay, that does ring a bell.
and let GMP know.
Yeah, I do remember seeing something about GMP. I guess at some point I'd love to come by and just make a visit. If you can keep me posted when a good time might be, I can run up there.
Okay.
It's my impression that the Crown Point Road passed right through that area. I believe there's a
Yes.
marker nearby.
Mhm.
You probably are aware that the Crown Point Road, when it was built, did follow existing native trails. So if the Crown Point Road is passing through the Center Falls area, and there is a marker nearby, that's a clear indication that it was a heavily traveled route, both on foot and by water. So we can pull that into the signage as well, interpretive signage.
Right.
And I, like I said, I'd be happy to do a little digging and send you something. It doesn't have to be a lot, but a few sentences that provide credit where it's due.
Yeah. Yeah. And anything you want to talk about, to tell about contact with white people,
Mm-hmm.
and that process.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Let me dig
We're all
into
ears.
that,
Mhm.
and I can forward that to you.
Yes.
I also
Yeah.
advised Rich that a lot of times when towns and other places were chartered, a lot of times any indigenous people, that they're going to meet them at that time, and sometimes that's documented. Like Rockingham is huge in their charters about the native people that were there. And my family were also considered gypsies. So part of the eugenics survey, we traveled in horses and we sold baskets and stuff. We traveled through Ludlow. There's a lot of newspaper accounts of us being, putting up camps and traveling through even more modern time, not just like ancient history, but even modern times. And we work a lot, like in Rutland now, like with the Green Mountain National Forest, we have access to the forest lands. We used to work on the Cairns in Rochester, and there's a lot of work we still do in Rutland area. So it's not like, I don't want it to be past tense, because a lot of times people write things as this, there were natives here, or this did happen. And it's more of, we are still here and we still participate. It just, we have different lived experiences now than we did then. So I think all of it should be celebrated, and especially with the 250th coming up, when we were also involved with the Patriots. Not that that should be on this sign, but I'm just saying, just in general for the city of Rutland or others, just working on that kind of shared experience, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's great, great.
I think there was also a guy I worked with earlier. He down at the Marble Works in Rutland. He was creating a statue. He was going to donate it at one point. He did a native figure. I can't remember what his name was, but he used to have an artist shop down one of the art areas that he used to use some of the marble down there. I can't. I wish I remember his name. It's several years ago, but
This was
I don't know.
in Rutland.
Yeah, yeah. I just don't remember his name. I'd have to go back and try to dig it. But he wanted to do some sort of monument or some sort of thing out of marble, and he wanted to donate it to us up here. And we didn't have the space for it at the time, but and one of the parks we were looking at too down in Rutland, we were working with somebody to put up a park. They were going to donate it was like an acre of land, or I can't remember. We've done some different things, but it's been a while. We didn't end up getting the land. I don't remember what it was for. Do you remember that, Rich? There was a park that they were looking to do, almost like a playground or some sort of open space, and they were going to name it, put some signs up. I don't think it was this one. I think it was somewhere else. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm kind of
Just
detracting.
dimly.
Yeah, I'm detracting from the conversation. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. If you have any questions, be happy to help answer them. Any of your members there.
Yeah.
Now, when you say
For this forum.
Go, Chief, finish what you're saying.
I'm just going to ask, when you say kiosk, are you talking about just a sign for information? Or are you talking about something that's going to run that you, like a fob, you push something and it plays a video or does some, are you talking like more of just a sign or like an electronic kiosk type thing?
Well, it'd be like a welcoming sign with, it would have like a little roof on it and two-sided.
Okay.
So that would be on a larger side. Well, larger than most historical signs. Probably will be like 4x6 or something like that, maybe a little bit larger. But we're hoping to have some additional signs too.
So it'll be a stagnant. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the kiosk, we should design it where we can put information in and out of that one. The other signage will probably be more permanent. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, I want to check out my Native American history. Listen to these guys, because we have family like Chickasaw or Chicopee from Massachusetts. So my dad was telling me a story about us moving up to Canada and mixing with the fur traders back there and having some Native Americans. So it's very interesting, all of this. In fact, you guys have a dictionary with 13,000 words. I think should be something that we should try to highlight or showcase. Try to do an auditory potentially for that to put that out there.
Well, that's kind of why I was saying if you wanted to move just at some point, not because it's not this topic, but if you ever want to partner somehow within the city of Rutland to do displays, I have a display at the international airport. I help rename Saskadena 6 from Suicide 6. We've done place names. We work with cities of Montpelier and other locations. So we're not adverse with working with different communities to try to educate and have like displays or types of events or other things that we can do to help uplift everybody in the community, and people can learn about the original Vermonters that are here. I mean, we have food programs, we do seed things, even we work with the Fish and Wildlife that distribute the roadkill out of Rutland, for, I don't know if you have a food processing from the Fish and Wildlife in Rutland where they cut up roadkill and they distribute it to people like us in food shelves. But you have that also going on in Rutland, and we work closely with them and others on land access, food security, education, and all that. So I just wanted to at least throw that out there, that we're always here to try to help uplift communities if people want to engage. So,
And with something as small as a pocket park, could you see yourself doing some programs related to the tribes?
I mean, anything's possible for myself. I mean, I mean, it might be a perfect place. We've built birch bark canoes. We've done dugout canoes. There could be different types of workshops, or you could do something during a special time where you have an event. I mean, 2 acres is pretty not a problem. I mean, sometimes we've done. I mean, El New has done living history at the Maritime Museum, where they have a tent and you have people that can come in and you do different historical talks, or you could learn about more about us. We've done drumming events. I mean, anything is possible. It's just like, does it fit in our schedule? How does it work out? Do you have a budget? What does that look like? Whether we have artists that do tremendous amount of work. And so that's why I'm throwing it out there, is that we're open to the city of Rutland to do other things if it fits in our schedule and our times and our budgets, but we have to work together in order to do that. And just keep that in the back of your mind, with place names, with renaming different things, or working with the city on education, or even having a semi-permanent display. We had them in the rest areas just recently. The state asked us to put them in. We had ours in Williston, and there's still some in Waterford. You were in Guilford, right, Rich?
Yep.
We had those up for over a month in those areas. So we kind of can do many different things.
Well, another an idea for something to include on your signage in terms of place names. I have provided audio that can be linked to by a QR code on the sign. Put a QR code and then the vocabulary, and you can hear it spoken to the gentleman to your left, to his point. Bring the language alive. Another opportunity would be perhaps if there was a dedication of the park, maybe a contingent from our communities could come and join you for the dedication.
Yes.
Yep. And
Definitely.
I think, Rich, other towns that, remember Charlie, who did some murals down at the retreat farm? That's, they've done permanent murals, like in the retreat farm. There's some in New Hampshire that, have they might take a wall space and do some sort of mural. Not here because there's no building, but just say there was an area at Green Mountain Power or someplace close to it that they had a brick wall that might needed to be, you might want to extend that art out or something into, to expand it in nearby areas that would showcase, like I think he put some salmon or something jumping up the river, that was in one of the areas. So I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not trying to create a lot of work for us all, but I'm just letting the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
There's the bridge, like right there. There's like the parking and then the stone. It's not a huge space, but it is very visible from the parking lot.
Yeah.
The railroad bridge.
Mhm. Maybe even more visible once we clean it out.
Right.
And first of all, thank you for joining us and all the information you've provided. I'm thinking one way to progress in the short run, maybe, is to get the kiosk designed and find out how much space we have to work with. And then we can go back to you, perhaps with a request to say, here's what we have. Give us something in writing. Create something that you would be happy with here. Come down and visit us before you do that, perhaps. But maybe we need to get a little more specific. And we'll suit both parties
Mm-hmm.
a little better.
Yeah, we're still working on the financing of the park.
Without that, we go nowhere.
Well, it'll be a combination of hopefully some grant money and town of Rutland money. And we're still working on the exact, what we want in that initial phase, whether it be just the kiosk or whether it be the kiosk and other signage in addition to that. So yes, we can get back to you on, just what kind of, how much space, we're looking to, use for signage. But I think we can start working on, some of the things we've been talking about tonight. What needs to, what you think belongs on those signs. And, and we'll work through that, edit through that, and, get a start on both ends, I think.
And I also think what might be helpful is if there's something in that area. I know you're known for marble and that, but like we used quartzite, other things for making arrowheads and other like there's a big quarry over in Heinsberg that we used. There's other sites that if there's known sites that we would use there, whether it be like I said, there's a ton of artifacts up and down the Otter Creek when it comes to clay. Pottery, arrowheads, different types of things, because the wildlife was so diverse. There may be other areas, like we use soapstone. So Castleton would have been a huge area for us because we use soapstone for our pipes. We use them for various implements and tools. We still carve that today. I don't know what you have in that area for natural resources that we might have taken advantage of around those areas. That's another thing to consider when you're talking about that waterway and other things that might be in the area.
A lot of marble.
That was kind of hard to carve, was it? With our tools.
Yeah. And how should we loop in the other two tribes in this process? How would you suggest?
I would say reach out like you did before, or we can send something. But if you reach out to each chief, and then if they decide they want to participate, they'll be like Rich and I. They'll come in and they'll communicate with you either through email or through this avenue. If they decide not to, then you work with the people who are willing to do that. Whether it be, I sometimes defer more towards Rich because that's his area. I mean, he's in the southern. I'm more Northeast Kingdom, but I do work all over the state, so I'm here to help as needed. But what Native people normally do, they work on watersheds and they defer to the people who are normally in that watershed because we want to respect the fact that that was their area, right? So I look at Rutland more as their new area, and we're here to support them however they need. I mean, obviously Stockbridge, they've been moved for a long time, first to New York and then over to Wisconsin. So even though they have ancient connections here, I don't know how much they do in modern times. You know what I mean? We walk the trails, we hunt, we live. We have people all over that we're still using the area that we're doing. I'm not minimizing the Muncies. I'm just saying that, we're closer a little bit and we have a lot more intimate relationship with the land because we're still occupying it. That's all I'm saying is that we still have an intimate relationship with our place because we still live here. So I would say communicate with all of them, and then if people don't respond, then just communicate with the people who do. And that's my recommendation. That way you're not chasing people and you're just working with those who are engaged.
Rich, do you feel like you have enough instruction from us, directive from us about the next step, just sharing information?
Yes, I do. That's a plenty to get started with. And I'll just little language lesson there. The Abenaki word for yes is So you all speak Abenaki already. That has entered American English.
That'd be an interesting fact to display.
Yes.
Right? I mean, just everybody says and it's like, where did it come from? Now we have some context for it. That would be something to highlight. I think that would just be a nice little tie-in.
That's where it comes from.
Well, and I know this is being recorded, but I got to be careful because I'm from the Northeast Kingdom, right, area, and we say there's people say, how do you say it? Some say Abenaki, some say Abenaki, and some say Abernaki, and some say Abnaki. So it's all potato. It's all the same. It just depends on where you're from and your accent and what you and how you refer to
Dimitri, it seems to me that something as basic as could be on a barcode. We could explain and then, you know, Abenaki language in English, adopted by English, and then have that on a barcode and have him talk.
I was even thinking maybe go a step further, just have like a push button if we were able to get some sort of recording of it. Like, how do you say yes in Abenaki? And you push the button, and it's like, oh, well, I mean, common words. So it's like kind of teaching people a little bit about the language.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, are there any like replicas of tools or items that you guys use that you'd like to have on display? I know it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. We could kind of think about how to incorporate it. But, just to really build upon the history and kind of give somebody coming there, not just looking at barcodes and, going to some other site, but having things on the site they can actually see.
Or maybe housed here in the town office.
Chief Don can speak to that. His community went through an extensive project doing 3D mapping of cultural objects, and they can be printed with a 3D printer. So that you would have copies.
So we have 3,000-year-old actual pottery from Otter Creek. We have the same with arrowheads. We also have, like Rich has said, we went through a project. If you went to sketchfab.com, it's called sketchfab.com, and search for Abenaki Helping Abenaki in the search bar. So sketchfab.com, Abenaki Helping Abenaki, and then you'll see 178 artifacts that we have in 3D model. You push on, you click it with a mouse, and you can rotate it 365 degrees. It tells you where it came from, what time period. I mean, that's and stuff from Otter Creek and Lemon Fair and other places. We don't tell the exact location because we don't want treasure hunters. But we do have a lot of that kind of stuff. Like I had said, I have a lot of artist material for display. Like I said, I did the display at Saskadena 6. I've done the one in the airport. I've got some stuff at the Native American Museum, the Shelburne Museum. I've worked on many displays, and we could put a display in if it was secure in your area. Do we have actual stone tools? Yes. We have hammer stones, we have pestles, we have actual other types. You might even have some in your historical society. I mean, I would check with your historical society, see what they have in their inventory. And I know, I don't know if the state archaeological building I don't know if there's anything in Rutland, but there might even be some things that they could put on loan that, some of them are chips and flakes that you find all over the place, and some are actually complete. And as Rich said, we work with Castleton College. We could take some of those things and 3D print them. So we don't care if you lose a resin exact copy of an arrowhead. We don't care because you can print another one. But we do care more about the 3,000-year-old one. But it just depends on the setting, the security, and what you want to show. The other thing I will say, we work with Brighton State Park, and they have kiosk machines where they have a fob that they borrow, and people go out and they touch the thing and they learn about, and I do drumming and singing and all that. But that can be intensive because somebody has to monitor that fob. I think Rich's idea with a QR code, and you send them to a website on maybe the town website, you create a space for it. That QR code brings them to this website that they can then. You can have your history, everything you want in Rutland about Indigenous culture there, whether it be us or the Mohegan, have a space for both. And, we're pronouncing it in our language, they're pronouncing it in theirs. I think you could make, just by using their smartphone and clicking on the QR code and going to it, if there's cell service, you got to make sure there's cell service. But, that then you can build a whole thing around just the kiosk, and then you don't have to worry about batteries or other types of things that might die, because who's going to maintain that? Because I always look at what is it going to take to maintain something. So the simplest thing, I think, is the barcode. But if you want to put like something solid there as something to look at that nobody's going to break or steal, or you won't care, then you could put some replication artifacts, or you could actually, if you have a stone tool that is, if you got 4 hammerstones and you only need 1 from the same site, you might be able to put something in there. Maybe you work with the Green Mountain Power or your offices to create a secure location for displays, and you rotate them. You rotate the information, or then you can have programs. We work with the city of Montpelier. We just got a land access agreement from them, and they're giving us free access to the parks and areas and some of their areas, and we're doing programming. If we do programming or hold like celebrations or other types of things, then we can use those areas to help educate, the population. So anyway, like I said, these are all things that we can do. Not saying, there's even signs you could hang up and down the street of Route 7 that have different verbiage on them. If you're doing a 250th celebration, you could do some that are Abenaki, some that are Mohegan, and some that are other, and just, you're hanging them off the poles like you would do. Like you see those people that are graduating and they put the kid's face up, and, you're going down and you see each sign. There, like I said, you can do almost anything you want. It's time, money, and budget. And when do you want to do it? So we look at things as partnerships and long-term partnerships. So we can do as little or as much as you all want to look at.
Great ideas. Anyone else?
I'm thinking, why not? If we can get a 3D printer there and reprint like arrowheads, that might be something to draw people to there. Like, it might be a nominal fee of $1 or something, but it's like, here, have a replica arrowhead from the Abenaki tribe. I mean, that's going a bit beyond. I'm thinking that might be a bit more interactive.
2027.
Yeah. But no, definitely just knowing of that you have all those artifacts that have already been 3D and now you just print them. And that could be a good opportunity there to try to get some interaction from people to come to the site.
We'll leave that in your capable hands of what you guys can do and what you're willing to maintain. Because like I said, we'll leave that up to you. I mean, you could put a little penny machine too and have it die cast, and you have something, they put a penny in and they get something out. I don't know, but yeah. I'm just saying is that's really up to you to say, what do you really want to do? What do you have time for? And how are we involved in that? And that's probably because we do have limited time and resources, but as you can tell, we're here trying to support you in this endeavor. And you will find out I'm a little more long-winded than some. So I'm trying my best to not be.
Thank you so much. And yes, I am sure there's a number of things we can work on together here with Fox Park.
You have my contact. Should we say it, Rich? Audio.
Audio.
Nanawamazi, right?
Yeah, Oli Nanawamazi. Oli Bamkani. Oli Wani. Thank you very much.
Goodbye. Take care till we see you again, and safe journeys.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate your presentation.
Very good. Good. Yeah, keep
And
going.
then there was one.
Yeah.
Two things just jumped out at me. First of all, you were talking about Crown Point Road. There's a fellow named Barry Griffith who lives in Shrewsbury, and he's giving a talk at Osher. He either has or will be on Crown Point Road that we might want to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
And,
He's written us several letters of recommendation for support.
Okay. I know him well enough to call him.
Okay.
If the other thing is some of the things that Don was talking about seem to me to be very well suited for the townwide celebration. A booth or some sort of presentation. Some of the things were too, for lack of a better word, too broad, too complicated for the park. But, it might be interesting to members of the community, have a booth about the role of indigenous people in Rutland town. But then, you don't have to say anything about it.
Mary, could I ask, what do you think the town's plans are gonna be for the 250th?
Well, we met with a couple of city aldermen and we talked about that. At the very least, we're chipping in on fireworks. But one of the ideas we're floating, we haven't talked with our select board yet, but one of the ideas was to do a Friday night live kind of event, but have it at Northwood instead of downtown Rutland. We've also talked about having a parade. And we said, well, instead of doing your usual parade route, start in Rutland town somewhere. And we'll send, our fire trucks and our bands, things like that. So we started talking about it. We're also going to have, I haven't told Mike Rowe this yet, but we're going to have our two rec directors work together. So we started talking, right. And so it's the beginning. The town and we started with the question of which 250th are we celebrating? The US or is it Vermont's independence, which is next year? So we could extend this for a couple of years. We can then go on to what the US Constitution, which is a few years beyond that. So we started talking and it's very nice. And I think this is a really rich part of pocket parking. We did another meeting, so Barbara's got a further update on pocket park progress, and then let me add that I've been talking with the select board about it. And, we've already had people there volunteering, and the general feeling of the select board is, let's make this thing work and get it done. And yes to using town crew, and yes to finding money somewhere to pay for some of this if the grant that we've applied for doesn't go through. So I think this year is something, I'm pretty confident it's going to happen.
And we'll still kind of shoot for this fall, sometime as an opening.
Something, yeah. Some of the work is going to start now. Some of the invasive species stuff will be later in the year. But I think the clearing the pathway, well, I mean, I don't want to preempt what you were going to say, but Barbara and I met with the town's engineer, Robert Clark of Otter Creek Engineering this afternoon. And he's already, I mean, they're very excited about this. Engineers get to do like sewer lines, and suddenly they're getting to do a park with enormous history behind it. So
groundwork.
Yeah, above ground. So they're willing to actually chip in some of their time toward this. We're going to be coming up with an estimate for the town of what it would take, and then some simple design work to do the initial, taking the old road right of way and making that into the pathway to the overlook, making it handicapped accessible, putting in parking areas, putting in an area for the picnic tables that we've talked about, moving that DAR watering trough over that we've talked about. So that's all phase one, and that's the part we're looking to have happen this year. And thank you all for volunteering to, show up at the site and help move stuff and take out invasives and everything. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Yes.
I think you say, the very beginning of this, Mark Youngstrom from Otter Creek Engineering, he's retired from there.
Yep.
He's the one that took this pocket park on by himself. He just did this out of the goodness of his heart. And he put the photography together, the maps, but it really started, the groundwork here started with Mark Youngstrom. I just want to mention that.
Can we incorporate that in the pocket park too? Because I mean, he's having.
We understand that he still drops in by the office and keeps an eye on things there. We asked Robert about that. So I think Mark's going to be, on the periphery.
That's good.
Yeah. 'Cause, yeah. 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 Yeah.
How far back does that go, Howard?
the time goes by, but it's been like, it could have been 5 years, maybe within, like 5 years ago when he made him, I don't know if you were here, Bill, at the time or
Yeah, it
not.
was, yep. We talked about that, this afternoon.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was the, photo he put together, he prepared the whole thing, and, time goes by. It could have been
Yeah.
5 years or so, you know.
Not to bring up something too serious, but also on our agenda, Mary, was the Regional Planning Commission meeting on the new regional plan and the new maps. And are you expecting anything from us for that? I mean, we really haven't been party to their presentations to the select board, and I'm referring to the March.
One of those, remember Bill and I?
No, this is the regional land use.
Oh, the regional, yeah, that was different.
That was,
Yeah, I haven't been to any of their presentations. I do know that we did input early on because there were a couple of areas that we wanted to be sure were slightly modified to align more with what the town had in mind. And they were responsive, so, but if you can give us guidance about, is there anything that's really terribly wrong and doesn't line up with maybe what our local town plan map is, that would be useful. And then we can go and say, hey, you've got it wrong. I know there are restrictions that the state has imposed as to what should be in it. So we're somewhat limited. You know, I made my own personal comment on something and kind of got brushed off, but it wasn't because the regional commission wasn't responsive. It was because they felt very restricted by what the state expected to put in those maps.
And we'll try not to get too crazy about suggesting zoning or anything like that.
Oh, the Z
So
word.
we get into a higher tier and less Act 250 involvement.
Well, actually somebody on the zoning or on the select board was raised the idea about, hey, maybe we should revisit a fairly simple standard zoning ordinance. So there could be movement, but I don't want to tell you folks, go right ahead and do a zoning ordinance because it will be a long process. You know, you've been through it before.
And the town attorney has our stormwater ordinance.
subdivision.
Subdivision, and he's got two. He's got another one, a road.
He's got a road and-
Yeah, the streets and sidewalks ordinance, we're adding, some guidelines around excavations in the right of way. We've had some issues with that,
Yeah.
so.
I spoke with the town attorney 3-4 days ago, maybe it was last week. He is absolutely swamped with stuff and he is understaffed, so. But he's well aware that he owes you folks a look over of, and I did say we kind of do want to get the subdivision ordinance in place, and he well knows it because we know what risk the old one is. I think that you'll be seeing that sooner rather than later. But no guarantees as to time, but continue to prod me and I'll continue to prod him. Dana's really good at prodding me, so I have no worries about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Mary, if you're giving me permission, then you may be in trouble.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know, I shouldn't have said that. One other thing, after town meeting, the select board traditionally does its reappointments of members of various boards and commissions, and so there's always opportunity for folks to pitch in. Some of you are up for reappointment. Our tradition has been, if you want to stay on, we usually keep you on. So if you are up for reappointment, check in the back of the town report. That will tell you whether you are. Let us know if you want to stay on. And thank you, as always, for the good work you've been doing. We appreciate it, even though we give you more and more. And we only do that because we know you guys are so good. So thank you. All right.
Question. So the attorney Swamp, is he interested in taking somebody under his wing for a law study?
I didn't ask him that, but I did pass along the name of an attorney. That, you know, and he gladly took it. So if you want to float the idea,
Okay.
it's probably worth it at this point.
Are you a lawyer too?
No, but I'd like to be a lawyer so I can do a law office study.
Yes,
Then I
please.
could get studying under him to then sit for a bar in 3 years.
Yeah, you need to talk to anyone at the Vermont Bar Association, including me.
Okay.
And I can tell you some of the programs that we have
Okay.
that might be useful to you. So I'm glad you're interested.
So you're gonna engineer and architect and.
Yeah, trying to jack of all trades, master of none, right?
Okay, so, what we were just talking about with the Regional Planning Commission, that's that other item under new business. There's a public hearing on March 17th. About the land use plan and the regional plan in general. Did we send a link to that with the maps
Yeah,
and
no
all that?
maps there.
Yeah. So I don't think, yeah, Sherman.
I just want to go back to the Pocket Park for a minute.
Yeah.
It based on what we heard tonight, it sounds like we need to nail down whether we're going to have a permanent sign or whether we're going to have something that can change. Got a lot to do with the size of what we get. And I think we could get more from them if we knew that. And I'm just saying, from our working forward, it'd be good for us to try to nail that down.
Is GMP, Mary, do you think they're going to take much of a role in the content?
No,
But I mean, they want some GMP information on there.
they do, and we want to have some on.
Yeah.
But they can certainly tell us the sign because they're constructing the physical kiosk. So we can ask them, how big is this going to be, or what's the maximum size?
Mm-hmm.
And it's accessible two-sided, so, yeah.
I think it's really important to know the size because that tells us how much content we can
Yes.
put on. I've seen kiosks that have 6 sides, central and then short wings, so to speak, coming out. And it almost sounds like that's that we have enough information, or potentially enough information to might merit that. But I don't know whether we get any input or not with GMP.
Well, they're designing a physical kiosk, so we can certainly ask, how big is this thing? And
Ask them if could they show us the plan or come and talk to us about it or something.
They've given us some examples in other towns that they put these kiosks. They've been to two-sided ones, or, peeked roof over them and
We could also consider telling them what we want.
yeah, except it's all pro bono on their part.
But they may it may be something to their advantage also.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of there could be something that we just replace every quarter or every month or whenever that's just built in and is part of it, and we just take something. I mean, there are alternatives. I'm not trying to solve it now, but I just think we need to decide what we want, and we can certainly help the Native American tribes in some idea of what the constraints are of how they respond to us.
Yeah, I think we'll know more about what we can afford after we hear about the grant.
By our next meeting. We'll know by the next meeting.
Yeah.
And then the select board needs to, have some deliberation on what they want to spend on this year.
yes, and I mean, we gave them the number that we came up with, and nobody was shocked.
Yeah, and that was close to 50,000.
That's, yeah, well, 64,500 to do everything, but some of it,
Yeah.
if it's done by the highway crew, it's in kind.
Yeah.
So it's, they're not saying, no, that's too much money.
Yeah.
But we're not paying for the kiosk, are we?
No, it's
No.
free.
Great. But I think Sherman's idea is, and my thoughts are pretty similar, is that we have to know what we have to work with before we can tell the indigenous.
Right, and we don't exactly know what we have to work with right now.
Yeah. And, are we just gonna ask for, 4 paragraphs? Or do we have room for more and maybe, bigger things and give us a small, give us a full page of 8.5 by 11, or do we want more about the history of it?
Well, there's also the QR codes and the website too, so we don't need to be that restricted. But what they give us.
We can be a little bit flexible. Everything needs to be really concise on those signs. They get more and more concise, and then the links.
There's a kiosk right at the beginning of Pond Hill Park Trail. And, if I get time, I could go up and take a picture, and send it and say, hey, we'll bring it back here and say, just something like we like. And if they're around town, you see them all the time until you want to know where they are, and then you can't think of it. But
I know like kiosks you're talking about at Pine Hill Park, it's as you come up the little steep part, right? And they have a kiosk there showing the park and like the trails and all of that stuff. Oh.
Yeah.
Should we get an idea of how much information the natives have? So that way we can at least have an idea of like, all right, we've got a lot of information. Like, then we got to start paring it down as opposed to like, oh, we've got this blank canvas. How much information can we get?
But the indigenous information is just part of the information that we will need to put on signs. And so in future meetings, we'll start meeting with historians.
Okay.
And we'll have a ton of stuff.
the two-sided, I think it's got to have some weight. I think it's got to have a lot of, I've forgotten about, Rutland Town historian, it's just indigenous people, GMP, and there'll be perhaps other stakeholders, each want, some space. Then we need to be sure the kiosk is adaptable to it.
Mm-hmm. And, I've always been in favor of more signs because we'll have a path and it's going to an overlook. Maybe we want some signs at the overlook. Maybe we want some along the path.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to the kiosk, which, welcomes you there and gives you the bigger picture.
What kind of signs are you thinking about? When I think about signs, I'm thinking about these with engraving and the lettering raised lettering.
You can make them look a little bit better than that. And they're much, that you can have, like pictures or images on them. You can have them at ADA height, or children's height. But still, everybody can read them. Most of them now have color and are slightly slanted.
You're gonna have them around near the picnic tables, near the overlook.
Why not?
Maybe you would have some through the trail. So you say, here's Crown Point, which used to be like a major artery for Native American travel. Right. So you step back in history, you're walking along Crown Point.
Right. And the water drop is going to be there. So there could be a stand there with I've been listening to all this and been on all these meetings, and we can come up with more signs than we have square footage for in that park.
Okay.
Easily. So, and whomever is going to be actually, GMP is going to, create the concept, but there's going to be someone who's going to actually make this thing, whether it's like awesome graphics or like that. And they're probably going to be the best ones to talk about how do we lay out the information so that it's visually appealing and we don't have 400 QR codes on 48 square feet, which is not good, but we can have some targeted ones. So we can absolutely set up space pages on the website for this information, and there can be a page for each tribe, and then this QR code goes to this page. And this QR code is the same one in a couple different locations, but all points back to the same place online. So we're not trying to create multiple pages for multiple QR. That's going to be way too hard to manage. So we can have some for, this is some information on the Crown Point Road, and then we give some information and pictures and stuff, and then you want more, go here. For the indigenous ones, here's some information. You want more, go here. So like the signs are going to have, I'm envisioning like probably 6 or 8 sections per side with information that you can have some bullet points, and then you can go on from there. And then we can have other smaller ones, other places. And like you saying about some of the spoken words, like that's a really great thing. And we have them around in different spots, smaller ones. But again, if we have multiple little stands with signs, there is an element that's going to probably not respect them. So we've got to figure out how to manage what happens if they're not there anymore. And like, so there's a lot to that. So more signs we have, the more responsibility there is to keep it up, and then who becomes responsible ultimately for that. And we talked about a camera for the park, and I'm working on that. We may be a lot closer to solution now than I was this morning. So but we're working on that too. But there's a lot we can do with this, a lot. And I think trying to get it all done up front is probably going to rush it, and it's not going to be as good as it could be if we kind of layer it in. So I was thinking like designing that kiosk so it's got panels that can be changed. So as pictures and text and stuff like that, we want to change it, we can take out panels and put them back in, so that way we can update it and it's not the same thing every time people go there.
Barbara, do you want me to reach out to GMP, or do you want to?
Either way, I was just putting it down on my list.
Okay.
I was thinking about what I was going to ask is does anybody, Mary, Barb, Bill, any of us, know somebody in town who could help us get this organized on the front end? Somebody, architect, land planner, I don't know. But is there a professional in town we might be able to twist his arm or her arm a little bit and get some direction? How many signs? What size are the signs going to be at the beginning, and what are they going to be down the path, so to speak?
Remember that we met with Robert Clark, and he's going to give us some of the rough, positioning of things.
Okay, I don't remember that, but it's okay.
That's Otter Creek Engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, Otter Creek Engineering. And we asked him specifically if he had on staff a landscape person who could, help refine some of this. He does not, but I think he said he would get us the names of some folks that they had worked with.
Okay.
So sort of, we're going to get that information.
Right, because it just seems we've got wonderful ideas, a lot of energy, and every time somebody says something, it opens up to other things in the rest of us. So if you've got somebody that we can meet with and draw it together and at least get a place to start, because
Yeah. And we're going to have, some of this is going to be kind of fun in a sense, like the Crown Point Road, okay, the Native Americans used it. They were the first to use it. And then the military came in and used it. And then its purpose was to get more white people settling in this area. So we're going to have to, there's some things we're going to have to balance and nuance as we talk with these different folks. So it's just not a matter of, how much is going to go on there. It's like, what is going to go on there in some cases.
Yeah, that stuck with me what they were saying about it's not the past, it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
Talk about them
that's-
in the past tense. I wouldn't have thought.
I know, we haven't even really thought about that. It's
Right.
like, yeah, this is an ongoing thing. Yeah. Okay.
Dan, you got your hand up. Sorry. Only your.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
thanks.
there it is.
I was just waiting for somebody to pay attention to me, you know. I don't talk very much, so I'm kind of like a wilting flower.
Waiting for you to come in. I was keeping your seat warm for you, but
Can you cut his
Yeah,
mic
well.
now?
I found it necessary to zoom in tonight. I don't know if anybody has considered this, but it might be worth reaching out to, I don't know if it's digital arts or graphic design or at the Stafford Technical Center for layout for purposes of deciding how much you should put on any particular page, whether those are physical pages that we use as part of the kiosk display or whether those are pages on the website. They might be able to work on a project, the students there, and that might be a great opportunity to both reach out to the community, display some of their work, give them some recognition, promote the program, and get some great ideas, as well as some free labor to put the kiosk presentations together, as well as anything that would be on the website. I don't know if that would be helpful or not, but it was a thought that I had.
Really good idea.
yeah.
Mhm.
We've tapped Stafford Tech Center in a number of ways. They're building a dam for our generator over here. So we frequently go and see if they can, do a project for us. That's a good one.
Mhm. Even some of the teachers there.
Yes.
Mhm. Okay. Anything else on this topic this evening? Okay. So we've pretty much done everything. We're down to the minutes. We can close it out with the January 29th. Minutes.
Move to approve the minutes from January 29th.
Second,
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the minutes? Oh. Wasn't it, okay, the date on the minutes is the January 30th? Didn't we meet on the?
29th, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So if we could change that. Is that okay with the makers of the motion?
sure.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
I'm abstaining. I wasn't here.
Okay. One abstention with any opposed? Okay.
When's the next meeting?
Wait, you weren't here on the 29th?
Yes.
Should we strike your name from there?
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Is my name on there also?
Yeah.
Thanks, on
I remember I zoomed in, so that was the one I was out for.
no.
When's the next meeting?
The
Are you
next
sure?
meeting is. The next meeting is March 12th, and we have David Gray.
You were here.
You were here.
All right, so physically he was here, mentally, no.
I thought he was coming in.
Demetrio was online and he was the alternate.
Yeah.
The next meeting is Act 250 and Walmart,
remember you said you was
March 12th. Yeah, for some reason I said April at one point, but
Was the last
it is
meeting
March
was
12th, right, Phil? That David Gray?
Yes.
Weeks ago.
Yeah. He wanted tonight, we told him.
Right.
We were talking about something.
So yeah,
Yeah,
we'll spend most of the meeting with David
really confused.
next time.
I thought that was a meeting before.
But pick up this conversation about the signage too,
What's that again?
next meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll know about the T-Mobile grant.
Yeah.
yeah.
That meeting week, we'll make announcements one way or the other.
Yeah.
During those two meetings, so.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I just want to add one thing. I've been convinced that I was here on the 29th
Welcome aboard.
So I agree. Okay.
Okay, we're ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, everybody looks at me.
Second too. Yeah.
Why is that?
We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.